So let me ask you this. What happens when the man who has built his entire reputation on being Mr. Family First, Mr. Faith and Fatherhood, suddenly finds the truth creeping out from the very place he thought was untouchable? His own children. Shocking. We're just getting started. Martell Holt, the self-proclaimed devoted dad, the polished Instagram prophet with Bible verses on Monday and beach selfies on Tuesday, is now standing in the middle of a storm that not even his favorite filter can clean up. Because apparently, the kids are talking, what they're saying isn't exactly matching his captions of family over everything. And here's the kicker. What if everything you've been seeing on his feed, all those smiling photos and polished man of God declarations, were nothing more than carefully staged performances hiding chaos, manipulation, and drama straight out of a reality TV meltdown? What if the people who know him best, his kids, are the ones pulling the plug on the illusion? Viewers, buckle up, because today, we're peeling back every layer of this circus. Every cryptic post, every fake smile, and exposing what really happens when social media theatrics, parental sabotage, and ego the size of a mansion collide. Spoiler alert, it's uglier than you think. And it might just be the final act for Martell Holt. Martell Holt built his image as the man who wanted the world to believe that his life revolved around faith, family, and love, yet behind the polished captions and carefully arranged photos lies a story that is unraveling faster than any filter can hide, and the unraveling begins when the very children he claims to protect start quietly exposing the truth about what really happens when the cameras are off and the phones are put down. Because Martell has spent years crafting a persona of the perfect father, sprinkling his social media with Bible verses, fatherhood quotes, and smiling pictures that paint him as the ultimate family man. And for a long time, people bought into the illusion, believing that here was a man who had it all together. But when you look closely at the timeline, the patterns become impossible to ignore, as the same man who shouts family first online is accused in court documents of skipping mandatory counseling sessions, ignoring co-parenting rules, and dragging out legal battles not to protect his children, but allegedly to keep Melody trapped in a cycle of hearings, paperwork, and stress that drains her energy and distracts from raising the kids. The irony is glaring, because while Martell flaunts vacations with Ariane Curry, complete with lavish gifts and staged joy, he hides behind the excuse of privacy when it comes to his children, with Melody creating a double standard that fans have not only noticed but begun to document with screenshots, timestamps, and side-by-side comparisons of his posts versus his actual actions. And as the puzzle pieces come together, the picture shows a man who seems less concerned with fatherhood and more obsessed with controlling how fatherhood looks to the outside world, because each Instagram caption is designed not to reflect reality but to maintain power over the narrative. And while he floods timelines with selective transparency, his children are growing older, more aware, and beginning to recognize the gap between what their father says in public and what they feel in private. And that recognition is powerful, because unlike staged photos, their voices carry the weight of lived experience. And when those voices whisper the truth, the carefully built illusion cannot survive for long. And that is why the scandal has captured the attention of fans who once praised Martell but are now questioning his every move, pointing out that Melody continues to follow court orders, attend counseling, and meet every legal requirement with discipline, while Martell chooses to play games with delays, appeals, and cryptic social media posts that serve no one but himself. And the hypocrisy could not be clearer, because one parent is steady, composed, and focused on the children, while the other seems intent on using both the courts and Instagram as weapons of control. And the fallout of this pattern does not just affect the adults, because the children are the ones caught in the middle, learning lessons about manipulation, stress, and inconsistency, lessons they never asked for and should never have to absorb. Yet here they are, internalizing the difference between a parent who brings stability and a parent who creates chaos, and the audience that once applauded Martell's speeches is beginning to turn against him, recognizing that devotion to family is not proven by captions or staged smiles, but by consistent actions over time. And the truth is that when your children start to see through the act, when they begin to call out the difference between words and reality, no amount of online image management can save you, because the most authentic evidence of character comes from the people closest to you, and Martell Holt is learning that the hard way as his mask begins to slip and the reality behind the curated persona spills into public view. The story deepens when you begin to see how Martell's pattern of behavior has been amplified by the very tools he uses to polish his image. Because social media has not only become his stage, but also his shield, and instead of reflecting genuine family life, it has become a curated performance space, where each post is carefully framed to distract from the reality behind the scenes. And while he parades with Arian Curry in pictures that scream untouchable happiness, complete with designer outfits, luxury trips, and expensive gifts, the children he shares with Melody are forced into the shadows with the excuse of privacy, leaving people to wonder why his definition of privacy is so selective and what that selectiveness really hides. And the whispers suggest that it hides a troubling double standard, one that fans have started dissecting by collecting every screenshot, every caption, every court filing that aligns with a suspiciously timed post. And the more the pieces are laid out side by side, the clearer the pattern becomes, because this is not a man fighting for his children out of love. This is a man fighting for control out of ego. And the most shocking part is that his own children are beginning to echo truths that unravel his performance, revealing that, behind the scenes, what they experience does not match what the world has shown. And in that gap between image and reality lies the scandal that has caught the public's attention and fueled endless debates across comment sections, forums, and gossip blogs, as people now question how much of Martell's persona has ever been real, because former supporters who once sympathized with him are now pointing out contradictions in his behavior, noting how often he seems to prioritize winning the spotlight rather than actually being present in the quiet moments of parenting that require patience, consistency, and sacrifice. And court insiders claim that instead of cooperating with requirements designed to stabilize the children's lives, Martell has allegedly dodged obligations, used delays to his advantage, and turned legal processes into weapons to keep Melody entangled in stress rather than free to focus fully on the kids. And each maneuver adds to the Tacy maneuver, adds to the impression that the custody battle is less about fatherhood and more about keeping control of the narrative, which he guards as tightly as he guards his Instagram password. But control is slippery, especially when the people you are trying to control start resisting. And the irony is that the very audience Martell has been trying to manipulate is becoming sharper, more suspicious, and more vocal about the inconsistencies they see. So now every caption he posts, every vague jab at Melody, every Bible verse dropped into a picture of luxury feels less like devotion and more like strategy. And strategy without substance eventually collapses, because you cannot hold up a facade forever. And when the cracks appear, they spread quickly and visibly, and the cracks are spreading as fans piece together timelines and compare court documents with his online life, revealing a man who presents himself as righteous while allegedly disregarding the very rules set to protect his children's emotional well-being. And the fallout is not only public ridicule, but also the private cost of children who are trapped in homes filled with different energies, confusion, and lessons about control that could shape their understanding of family for years to come. Because children remember who created chaos and who created peace. They remember who followed rules and who twisted them. They remember who spoke the truth and who sold illusions. And that memory is far more powerful than any staged photo could ever be. Which is why Martell's story is no longer about him simply being a controversial public figure, but about him being an example of what happens when control, image, and ego take priority over genuine love and responsibility. And that is the kind of truth that no Instagram caption can erase. S. The scandal continues to unfold. The consequences are becoming heavier because what started as whispers and online speculation has now turned into a tidal wave of scrutiny and doubt that Martell cannot easily escape since every delayed court date. Every cryptic social media post and every public appearance with Arian Curry is now viewed through the lens of manipulation and ego rather than devotion and sincerity, and the people who once applauded his father-first image are no longer convinced that the man behind the posts truly embodies the values he preaches, because the evidence of repeated disregard for counseling orders, the avoidance of psychological evaluations, and the endless stretching of custody disputes is mounting, and the picture it paints is one of a man far more concerned with controlling a narrative than protecting the well-being of his children. And what makes this fall from grace even more powerful is the undeniable contrast with Melody, who has consistently complied with every legal requirement shown up for every summons case, make it for every appointment, and kept her focus on stability for the kids, which only throws Martell's choices into sharper relief, making his actions appear not only hypocritical, but calculated, and the weight of that calculation is now being felt in the children's lives. Because their own awareness is growing, they see the difference between homes filled with calm and consistency and homes marked by tension, conflict, and spectacle. And while Martell attempts to convince the world with smiles, staged photos, and Bible verses, the children's truth cannot be staged because they live it every siege. Live it every siege because they live it every day, and they carry the knowledge of who shows up for them and who uses them as props in an endless performance. And the longer this cycle continues, the deeper those lessons become, and experts warn that children raised in such high-conflict environments do not easily forget who created peace and who created chaos, which means Martell is carving a legacy that may haunt him longer than any social media scandal ever could, since history remembers public drama, but children remember lived experience. And as fans continue piecing together the puzzle of his actions alongside court documents, anonymous insider claims, and his own inconsistent posts, the illusion that once seemed untouchable is dissolving. And what remains is not the portrait of a devoted father, but the cautionary tale of a man so consumed with control and ego that he allowed his family to become collateral damage in his personal war. And the fallout does not stop with reputation alone, because when the public begins to doubt, when supporters turn critics, when fans transform into digital detectives, the pressure becomes relentless. And Martell is now standing in a spotlight far harsher than the one he once sought, because now every move is dissected, every caption questioned, every delay in court proceedings cataloged and compared, and the narrative he thought he controlled is slipping from his hands, being rewritten by the very audience he tried to manipulate, and most painfully by his own children, who will carry forward their version of events into the future, and that version cannot be erased with a vacation photo or silenced with a cryptic Bible verse. And so the story of Martell Holt is not just a scandal in the present tense, it is the slow burning revelation of how control without accountability and ego without humility can implode a carefully curated persona, leaving behind the undeniable truth that family cannot be built on performance alone, and that no amount of manipulation can outlast the simple honesty of children who speak what they know. So here we are at the end of this shocking unraveling, and the question is no longer about what Martell posts or how he frames his image, because the real story has been told by the silence breaking from inside his own home and the whispers that have grown into undeniable truths. And now it is up to you, the viewers, to decide what this really means, because do you believe a man can keep hiding behind captions, staged smiles, and carefully chosen words when the very people closest to him have started revealing the cracks? Or do you think this is only the beginning of a much bigger downfall that we are just now witnessing? Because scandals like this are not just about one person. They are about power, ego, manipulation, and the cost of ignoring the truth until it comes knocking louder than ever before. And if you want to keep pulling back the curtain and seeing the side of these stories that others are too afraid to say, then make sure you hit that like button, share this video with everyone, Who needs to see what is really happening? And subscribe, because the truth will keep coming, and you will not want to miss what explodes next.